how did a drunken hedge knight who sings in Dothraki set in motion a series of events that goes on to save the world 100 years on? Before the events of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, Sir Duncan the Tall was squire to Sir Arlan of Pennytree, whom he buries in the very first scene of the show. But what really happened during the 10-odd years they spent together? And how did an orphan boy from Flea Bottom come to defend the honor of maidens, to assault and befriend the blood of the dragon, and to raise a future king? To get to the bottom of this, we need to go back and understand the man who raised him.
I've never heard of this Sir Arlan of Pennytree.
Sir Arlan of Pennytree came from a small village in the Riverlands located near Riverrun, the seat of House Tully. It never appears in Game of Thrones, but in A Dance with Dragons, Jaime Lannister does camp at Pennytree while on his mission to stabilize the Riverlands after the War of the Five Kings.
Doesn't help that the Riverlands are between everything and everything else. The Westerlands gold, the Reaches grain, the Vales rock.
The name Pennytree comes from the oak in the square, where boys would nail a penny before marching off to war.
When a lord calls his banners and sends us boys off to war, it's custom for each to nail a penny to the oak in the square, and if we return, to take it down.
The Riverlands is a rich, populous, and fertile region smack in the middle of Westeros, so it's a crucial region to control for anyone making a bid for the Iron Throne.
The Riverlands are essential, Your Grace.
The Riverlands are the key to the war.
Because of its central location and lack of natural barriers, Arlan's home region has a bloodier history than any other in Westeros. From Aegon's ruining of Harrenhal, where Balerion the Black Dread melted its towers like candles, to the Dance of the Dragons, to Robb Stark outwitting and capturing Jaime in the Whispering Wood.
By the time they knew what was happening, it had already happened.
And with Pennytree's unfortunate position in the disputed lands between Stonehenge and Raventree Hall, the seats of eternal rivals House Bracken and House Blackwood, many young men's lives have gone into fighting their battles too.
This is our land. It's Bracken land.
Oh, it's a great old tree. And yet, it's often hard to find a spare bit to nail a new penny.
But Arlan lived a long life, making it closer to 60 than 50, which, all things considered, is not too shabby.
He lived nigh on 60 years. A veteran of 100 wars, but an enemy to none.
As a boy, Arlan's grandfather took him to King's Landing to see the last dragon before it died a year later. It was a small, unimpressive specimen, never growing into the grandeur of its ancestors after they'd been kept for generations in the dragon pit, a symbol of the Targaryen's own decline. Whether Arlan and his grandfather came from the tradition of resenting their overlords the same way other houses did, however, remains unknown.
They're incestuous aliens, Duncan.
Us Fossaways. We were here long before these others come to our shores.
Blood magickers and tyrants who've burned our lands, enslaved our people.
And our warrant will be here long after they are gone.
His worldly wealth amounted to 3 silver stags and an oaken shield, bearing his personal sigil of a silver-winged chalice on a brown field. His armor, his sword, an 8-foot war lance, and 3 horses. Thunder, the warhorse he rode only in tourneys or into battle. Chestnut, a swayed-back old stot. And Sweetfoot, a female palfrey who loved apples. We don't know where he got his heraldry from, or whether it has any relation to House Hersey, who also sports a winged chalice, as well as where he trained to become a capable swordsman. But Arlan was taken into the guard of great houses, like Houses Florent and Tyrell.
House Florent, Sir Arlan took service in your guard when your Lord Father lost his sight.
Perhaps due to the luscious gardens and masquerade nights of Highgarden, Sir Arlan often spoke of his time under Lord Leo Longthorn Tyrell as his very finest as a knight. There was unglamorous work too, like helping to hang an outlaw for stealing rings, and, of course, war, but we'll get onto that in a minute. Sir Arlan's prowess at jousting involved unhorsing Lord Stokeworth and the Bastard of Harrenhal in a melee at King's Landing, as well as Sir Daemon Lannister in a tourney at Lannisport. Triumphs later recalled by the prince and heir to the Iron Throne himself, Baelor Targaryen.
He overthrew Lord Stokeworth in the melee at King's Landing, and years before he unhorsed the Grey Lion himself.
Arlan even got matched up with Baelor in a tourney at Storm's End. He later told Dunc that he broke 7 lances in this outing, while Baelor remembered it a bit differently.
Tales grow in the telling, I know, but it was 4 lances only, I fear.
This feat marked the height of his career in the lists, however, and Arlan chose never to joust again, citing, "It's not every man who can boast that he broke 7 lances against the finest knight in the 7 kingdoms. I could never hope to do better, so why should I try?" He did, however, fight and bleed beside Lord Hayford's brothers and the other Targaryen loyalists at the Battle of the Redgrass Field, which ended the First Blackfyre Rebellion.
House Hayford. Sir Arlan fought side by side with your brothers at the Redgrass.
During a flashback in A Night of the Seven Kingdoms episode 5, we see Dunc looting this battlefield, which got its name after the many who died there.
Aww, that is sad.
The First Blackfyre Rebellion started when Aegon IV, also known as Aegon the Unworthy, legitimized his many bastards on his deathbed, including Brynden Rivers, who goes on to become the Three-Eyed Raven, as well as Daemon Waters, whom he gave the Targaryen ancestral Valyrian steel sword, Blackfyre. Daemon named himself after the sword and rose up against his true-born brother Daeron, who rallied the great houses of the realm and their vassals, the levies of the Riverlands and Pennytree included, to defend his claim to the throne.
A wheel with two hubs will not turn, and a kingdom with two kings will burn, as the saying goes.
Alongside Sir Arlan and his first squire and nephew, Roger of Pennytree, several important people in Westerosi history took part in this battle. And, unsurprisingly, the Brackens and the Blackwoods found themselves fighting on opposite sides yet again.
Houses Bracken and Blackwood have long detested one another.
Why?
The answer to that is lost in time.
Indeed, most already great houses fought with the Loyalists, while opportunistic houses on the rise fought for the New Order, hoping to gain favor with the would-be king amidst the upheaval. Because, you know,
chaos is a ladder.
10,000 men died in the Battle of the Redgrass, including Roger. Arlan watched him fall to Gorman Peak, who smashed Roger's head in with a mace. Kind of like how Baelor later dies to Maekar striking his head with a mace. It can't have been easy to retrieve the body in the aftermath, but Arlan goes on to bury Roger outside of King's Landing under a tree. Being far from home, he was probably the only one attending the funeral too. A lone hedge knight from nowhere, burying a boy who fell alongside thousands just like him, crushed under the wheel as the High Lords play their Game of Thrones.
And on it spins, crushing those on the ground.
We don't know the specifics surrounding what happened to Arlan himself during the battle, but presumably one or two of his many wounds would have come from there. Arlan only ever spoke of Roger or the Redgrass Field in his cups. It was a painful subject and he actively avoided it. And all he ever knew of Roger's killer was the sigil on his shield, but never his name. And he didn't want to know, because knowing who killed Roger might spur a desire to seek revenge, a quest that would inevitably consume him, perpetuating the cycle of violence and death. In Game of Thrones, Brienne is on a quest to kill Stannis for assassinating Renly, parallel with her mission to secure the Stark Girls. In the show, both these missions just kinda work out for her, but in the books, she might be faced with a choice of one or the other. Or that when she chooses to pursue vengeance, it comes at a great cost, perhaps even at the life of her squire, Podrick Payne. This is all speculation, of course, but it would play into the same kind of themes explored by Sir Arlan, who, unlike Brienne, chooses not to pursue vengeance. Now, the loss of his sister's son could explain why Arlan drinks so much.
The old man was never much for praying. He drank and he whored, and he was a hard man to know. He had no friends either.
Not having any particular favor with the gods, he probably never spoke with many septas or septons that often, the medieval equivalent of therapy.
Never too late to stop killing people, start helping people. It's never too late to come back.
And even if he did, many men choose to keep how they really feel to themselves. I've been there myself, not always setting the right kind of boundaries in close relationships.
Do you want to clout in the ear?
Well, not that bad, but still.
This is undignified, sir.
My breakthrough came when someone helped me see my own situation from the outside, the clarity I needed to set healthy boundaries. This is a paid partnership with BetterHelp, the world's largest online therapy platform. While I was lucky to get asked the right question at the right time, you can get matched with a credentialed therapist within 48 hours. Available to you via message, phone, or video. Whatever you're carrying, you don't have to sort it out at the bottom of a wineskin, bottle it up, or take it out on someone else. And more importantly, you don't have to do it alone. BetterHelp is the modern way to do the work, and you can change therapists freely at any time, no questions asked. Click the link in the description for a 10% discount on your first month at betterhelp.com/culturevulture. Dunc remembers Arlan as someone with a lifetime of stories and wisdom who knew honor and chivalry.
Sir Arlan always said that a hedge knight was the truest kind of knight.
On the other hand, it's implied through his own mannerism towards Egg, as well as confirmed by the many flashbacks, that Dunc took one or two clouts in the air on occasion. So, after losing Roger, Dunc is Arlan's second chance, kind of like how Uncle Iroh from The Last Airbender loses his son also to war, and later gets a shot at redemption with his nephew Zuko. And just like Iroh, Arlan's heart was also full of song. Unlike the book, the show has the quirky addition of Arlan singing in Dothraki, a very different language and culture from his own. The song, then, is about fighting battles and of courage and mercy being the path to salvation. Now, battle and courage are all quite aligned with Dothraki culture, but mercy, the concept of hell, and streets certainly are not. Perhaps Arlan learned the language and composed this song himself after taking up service on a merchant ship, or spent time fighting with Dothraki mercenaries, just like Jorah Mormont. So what does this have to do with Roger? Well, it could be that the song references battles fought indeed, as well as battles fought within. Perhaps the bit about courage pertains to facing one's own demons, the guilt of losing his nephew. And mercy could pertain to letting go of the past and embracing the future. So when Arlan tells Dunc to get up, it's not a stretch to think that he's speaking to himself as much as to Dunc.
Get up!
In the book, Arlan finds Dunc living wild in the stews and alleys of Flea Bottom, but in the show, he staggers out of a tavern and drunkenly defends him from a couple of corrupt gold cloaks who stole his money and killed his friend.
Leave that boy be!
So Dunc follows Arlan around, observing him from a distance at first, until he gets picked up and taken under Arlan's wing. During their time together, about 3 years before the tourney at Ashford Meadow, Dunc and Arlan served Lord Dondarrion in the battle with the Vulture King, who rose up against the Iron Throne from the Red Mountains of Dorne, where the price of victory included Arlan taking a bolt to the belly. But when Dunc confronts Lord Manfred Dondarrion about this, he's disappointed to learn that he doesn't recall the sacrifice at all.
But Sir Arlan took a wound in your father's service. How could you have forgotten him?
The Lord Father took 800 swords into those mountains. We've forgotten men who reaped much more than a wound.
What Dunc doesn't realize at the time is that Arlan's real legacy exists less in his penny-studded sword, being remembered by the lords he served or for the wars he fought in.
Sir Arlan was a great knight. Someone will remember him.
But in the values he perpetuated and the honorable man he raised. Because sometimes the most unexpected acts can change the course of history.
Sir Arlan would say, I wonder what the morrow will bring.
A veteran of 100 wars, a servant of great lords and small, a man who buried his nephew in a foreign field and spent the rest of his life raising an orphan in his place, Sir Arlan of Pennytree died of a chill on the road to Ashford Meadow. Dunc buried him facing the sunset,
because the old man always liked sunsets,
and decorated his grave with the same pink flowers Arlan put on Roger's grave. While Arlan's character doesn't get a lot of screen time, let alone dialogue, he is still somehow a bigger presence than a lot of characters that do. Similar to the Mad King Aerys Targaryen, whose only spoken line in 8 seasons of Game of Thrones is "Burn them all!" This is a fine example of how to successfully break the first rule of storytelling: show, don't tell. Through the recollections of Dunc alone, we already have a grasp on who the man was. So when we get Arlan's first bit of dialogue, well, that isn't shouting or muttering anyway, it's not so much out of necessity as a cherry on top.
And that's why they call it the Pennytree. A true knight always finishes a story.
It's a neat little farewell as Dunc in turn accepts the loss of Arlan and embraces the future with Egg, just like Arlan accepted the loss of Roger and embraced Dunc. But one mystery remains. Did Arlan actually ever knight Dunc?
Am I to be a knight one day, sir? As you are?
You don't look to be a knight.
Were there witnesses to your dubbing?
Only a robin in a thorn tree.
Any knight can make a knight, it's true.
So Duncan, knight me.
Why did you never knight me?
While the answer is never truly given, the point is kind of that it shouldn't matter. Sir Arlan's legacy lives on either way, and Dunc's choices, actions, and their outcomes do not change because of a formality invented by people who graduated from fancy lad school 1,000 years ago. And who knows, perhaps Arlan was never knighted himself, but who cares? A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms nuances the life of a hedge knight and, more importantly, as a role model. Contrasting the circumstances Dunc faced as a child with those he provides for Egg, we can see that he's already taken measures to ensure that Egg's experience is better than what he endured as a squire. Not to mention the lack of clouts in the air.
You'll eat my fist if you don't do as you're told. You'll get a copper if you do well, and a clout in the ear if not. You look like you need a good clout in the ear. By rights, I should beat you bloody. Do you want a clout in the ear?
What either of them can know riding out of Ashford Meadow is where the road eventually leads. Egg goes on to become Aegon V Targaryen, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms, with Dunc as his Lord Commander of the Kingsguard.
4 pages for Sir Duncan. He must have been quite a man.
So they say.
And when Egg's obsession with restoring dragons to the world goes up in, well, flames, at Summer Hall, Dunc is right there, hands and feet intact, ready to protect the innocent. Including, if the speculations are true, a pregnant Princess Rhaella, who gives birth to Rhaegar Targaryen, father of Jon Snow, the prince that was promised. A chain of events that all stems from one drunken hedge knight from the Riverlands who chose to get up off the ground and take in an orphan.
Mightn't it be that some morrow will come when I'll have need of that foot, when the realm will need that foot even more than a prince's life?
And by taking Egg on the road and rejecting the comforts of Summer Hall, Dunc embraces this new responsibility as well as the challenges of the real world, knowing that for all his doubts, his old master's flaws, knighthood or not, Sir Arlan equipped him for the task.
His name was Sir Arlan of Pennytree, and I am his legacy.
Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a nice comment if you like the video. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.